grocery store. I'm hiding toilet paper from the neighbors next door. We've got some liquor, but we need more at home. Go lock the front door. Oh, we're on the phone. Oh, working from home, checking email and meeting on Zoom. Oh, working from home, working from Ooh, we've gotta hold on and do our jobs. Watching Netflix 'cause it's all that we've got. Oh, we're watching movies. Oh, and rocking Bon Jovi. Shut up your door, unmute the microphone. Oh, working from home. Oh, we're on the phone. Oh, working from home, checking email and meeting on Zoom. Oh, working from home, working from home. Checking email and meeting on Zoom. Oh, working from home, working from home.
Hi, folks. Welcome to It Matters Radio. I'm Ken Ween. With me today, of course, is my wonderful co-host, Monica Brinkman.
Hello, folks.
And Monica, you and I have been working remotely all of our relationship.
Yes.
We've never actually met in person. But for many people, the idea of working remotely is kind of like this wild new idea that it's become almost a craze as people are dodging the bullet of COVID. But it also, for many companies, has been making sense for a long time. So we're very fortunate to have with us today a gentleman who is one of the first people to really get a handle on how to organize remote work. And he has come out just recently with a book called Surviving Remote Work. And his name is Sharon Koifman. And Sharon, welcome to It Matters Radio.
Hello, guys. A pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward for this wonderful interview.
Well, Sharon, how did you originally get into this world of remote?
The first time that I have seen and been exposed to the remote is when I noticed that in India, people work for a much lower cost of living, and I took advantage of this arbitrage about 20 years ago. I opened 2 offices in India, and I ran a web hosting and an outsourcing company, which at the highest grew up to about 3,000 clients. But my solution tended to be this a mom and pop shop where I deliver web design and hosting. So anybody, if you're a small real estate agent, this would have been the perfect solution for you. But what I've noticed with time is that people were serious companies, technology companies, web design companies were outsourcing to me because it was affordable, and I found it a little strange that somebody is getting business. They pay for their the way they do things, for the process, for the culture, and they're outsourcing everything to me. And I'm like a mom and pop shop, which today I can admit was I was not the right provider for that. And when I sold my first company, which again was all run remote, I ran a little consulting company in between, and then I decided to run DistantJob that was focused strictly on finding full-time, career-driven remote people. So this is kind of my story about all the remote experience. All those companies were run remotely, and I realized that remote needs to be focused and driven.
So basically, folks, what we're talking about here, just to make sure you understand, is not, yes, those people are still there in Bangalore and places like that, and you call up and you're talking to somebody who tells you his name is Charlie when it's obviously not. And you're struggling to understand. We're not talking about that. We're talking about hiring people in different locations because they are good employees. They are the people who can do the job. And now, added on to that, of course, we have people who maybe could have been going to a central office, but now no longer can because of the health issues. And so, Sharon, you wrote this book to help people understand how to run a remote business, this distanced business, and you also wanted to help employees who were being asked to work from someplace else, how to better do it. And you have some very good advice in there. And the first word that comes to my mind is distraction, because that's a word, of course, like all the books we have here on It Matters Radio, I read your book, even though I've been working remotely with Monica for all this time.
My God, somebody who actually read the book.
So one of the words that you use a lot is distraction. So let's talk about what you mean by that and why it's so important.
Well, look, distraction is what it all matters. I mean, in a physical office, often people don't even get to notice how distracted they are. There is research on this. The average person in an 8-hour shift usually produces about 2 hours and 53 minutes. And part of the reason for that is because it takes 25 minutes to actually get back to focus when somebody distracts you. So in an office, all the chit-chatting, somebody tells you about the great movie that they saw yesterday, the lunch, everybody needs to go to lunch together, the meetings, the little social media here. The entire day is so full of stuff that stops your work in the middle, and then you need to get to it, which makes you extremely unproductive. And that's why the remote experience is so much better, because you are somewhat more in control of your distractions. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean that you don't have a husband that starts shouting from downstairs, "Hey, where's my jeans?" and kids that are running around and food in the fridge, but you're in a lot more control of your distractions. And if you're able of creating a chunk of hours of work, you will produce more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, makes sense. Also what's good about it is it's good for the environment, because you don't have all these vehicles like you used to.
It's not just vehicles. It is, if you drive in downtown at night, you see how much light is turned on, and you see buildings with lights and on, and nobody's there.
That's true.
The amount of energy that an office consumes is outrageous. The amount of money that companies can actually save by just letting everybody go remote, and of course the environmental impact on it is huge. It's much more than just the cars.
So let me go back to this thing though, because it sounded like you were saying that the social interaction among workers is irrelevant to your model. And having read your book, I know that's not the case. So I want to, and of course, knowing Monica, let's make it clear. I mean, Monica and I do put time aside to interact socially, to talk about our lives. And of course, we're only a two-person business. Well, we used to have a cat, and she had to be.
Was the cat pressing all the buttons? Was that part of the deal?
Oh, sometimes Monica, wasn't it?
Sometimes she would, but usually she was pretty good. She would just sit and watch. She
Okay.
loved Ken.
Fair
What can
enough.
I say?
Anyway, would you like to talk a little about the idea that how you, as a remote employer, would work in the socializing part of things? Because I think that's very important.
It's incredibly important, and it is with no doubt one of the biggest challenges that I hear from people when they go remote. They're kind of losing their social experience. A lot of the selling point of what companies provide to people, without clearly saying it, but bring that feeling that, hey, this is the place where you can make friends. Hey, this is the place where you can create interaction. I know many people that don't need any more activity because they are very good with their friends in their office. And remote forces you to be a little more proactive. It's actually, in my opinion, much better, because the idea of being forced into a specific group that you don't necessarily associate with, or specific activities just because a company told you so, is not necessarily the most optimal way to practice your social experience. Your social experience should be, hey, I'm saving tons of money, I'm saving tons of time where it comes to traveling, I'm a lot more productive. Let me spend a little more time of my day focusing on creating social experiences or fun experiences. So part of the advice that I give in the book is that you should be booking your social experience like you book your business meetings. It becomes a priority. Just because you go remote, you can't just sit there and get lazy about it. You got to work on having better social experience, and that's good for the mental health.
I agree. And interestingly enough, the other day, I was talking to a woman whose husband has been working remotely. And fascinatingly, his problem is that he's overproductive. And he is so driven that he doesn't know that he can say no to a meeting. So they just keep adding meetings and adding tasks. And he is now working 10-hour days with no breaks. He's taking like a 15-minute lunch. And, I suggested that his wife buy him a copy of Surviving Remote Work to help him get a little bit more balance and understand that, this is not necessarily the healthy way to go forward. And in fact, I think it could be very destructive to the morale of a company after a while to have this one overachiever who is basically forcing the group to overproduce.
So it's actually, I don't think it's his fault at all. I actually feel that it is the company's fault, and it's the management fault, and
Yes.
they're the ones who are not equipped properly with this transition. Because mental health and burning out and overproduction is the big obstacle. I don't think there's a huge obstacle in moving remote. You purchase few technologies, you make few switches, and it's easy to go remote. But the mental health is the biggest problem, and the managers should be aware of it. The managers should be inquiring about it, should be creating trust that whenever somebody's getting burned out, it can be honest, because it sounds to me like this person doesn't know how to say no, but part of it is because he's potentially afraid of saying no.
Yeah.
And it's up to the manager to say, please tell me no, right, when it's too much. This is I sometimes give a little extra too much work for the people, but I try to give that disclaimer at least once a month, saying, guys, tell me if it's too much, if I overburn you. I want to know that you're happy, right? And the managers have neglected to do. Now, if your managers are not so great, which is often the case, it should be something. You probably should be searching for another job in the meantime, but you should be talking to your managers and tell them that this is not productive for anybody. If that your friend would get burned out.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that you kind of got me into thinking about is a heavy emphasis on your part in the book Surviving Remote Work on recommending to companies that they create metrics, that they keep track of what is going on, what's being done. And you actually recommend some programs for doing this. You want to talk a little about how to keep track of productivity in the remote world?
So keeping track, every company is different, right? You need to use our project management software, which is important, right? And you need to set up proper KPIs. If people don't understand what I mean by KPIs are ways to evaluate, to measure your productivity, right? In our case, for at least the recruitment department, it is how many people you outreached and how many people got back to us, right? And we have that managed in a systematic way, and we insert it into a project management software. You need to have some kind of KPI, and you need hopefully to automate it, but if you can't automate it, you need somebody to note it down. And this is how you can measure what people are doing. In our case, we use a software called Basecamp for project management software. The reason why we use Basecamp specifically, because Basecamp is the only project software company that they have been running an entire remote operation for 15 years. So they kind of build it for their own company. So that's why I'm a fan. It's a little bit old school. It's not the most beautifully made software, but it thinks about all the things that we need in the remote world.
You, in the book, of course, you recommend a lot of different things, software-wise and hardware. So, folks, if you are working remotely, or you're setting up your company to go remote, or what, there's a lot of really good concrete tips. Use this, use that. Here's what we are using. I think more the point. Here's what we use and why we use it. Just as you just heard Sharon talking. But one of the things that I was very struck by, and I'm going to talk about this guy who is this really overproductive friend,
Please.
who is, and he was using his home computer, which was, I guess, I mean, I don't know what specifically, but like I have an Acer laptop that I use for Zoom meetings. It's just dedicated for that now. And, it's nothing particularly good. I can keep it set for that, and that makes my life a little easier, and I happen to have it. Well, that was like his home computer was something on that order. And they said, oh, go home and work. And he's turning out, and by the way, he's a mathematical engineer kind of thing. And he's doing it
Super smart.
On his own little computer. And finally, it turned out that for some reason, head of the company, the head of his company, asked him, what are you using? What kind of and he told them, and he said, why haven't you told us you need a computer? Send us our specs, send us your specs, and we'll have it there tomorrow.
Yeah, wouldn't you want that even for just security reasons?
Look, I again, there is just so many companies who don't get it. I mean, I had a friend who had the reverse experience, a super brilliant computer engineer that moved from the office and asked, could I borrow the screen that I use in the office? And the manager said no. Right, and the manager, I mean, the manager is really stuck in that mentality. Is like, I can't wait to bring you back to the office. And this guy is a high-paid engineer, and he's producing so much, and he's loving his remote work. And the guy on the other side just doesn't get it. No, we need it. We need the group. We need to make that happen. So this happens. Sorry, can you ask?
Even if that were the case, even if they wanted to go back, although I think a lot of companies, as we're talking, I think a lot of companies are going to discover, gee, we're better this way than we're spending on. But even if you did, what was to make this manager think that this engineer wouldn't bring the screen back?
I don't know, because people are crazy, because I do say that in the book, straightforward. There's just a lot of crappy managers out there. This is a wake-up call for some. It's a wake-up call to be better,
Yes.
to realize their weakness and to become the super managers that should be, and even grow more in the company. For some, it's just they got away too long being really crappy managers, because they thought the management means checking on people to come on time and seeing them typing on the keyboard.
Yeah.
As we learned, people are not really productive, even if they look like they're typing on the keyboard. To respond to the technology aspect, because I think that the technology aspect in general is the easiest thing. I mean, every company has different budgets, and yes, you gotta make sure that people have good computers. But even more of that, you got to make sure that people have good headsets. You got to make sure that their internet is proper and stable. All these things are so important, because what you're doing with the transition is trying to make the experience, the communication experience, as fluid as possible, as if you're still sitting in the office. Because one of the biggest, and I call it in the book, the Watch-McCall effect, because it is those slight, tiny disturbance, the irritating latencies, the scratchy noises that come from the side and everything, that you don't necessarily hear in a physical world, or at least they're a lot less distracting. And here in the Zoom world, you just want to get off the Zoom as fast as possible, because it's just exhausting you. So you wanna so make sure to buy a good headset. The Jabra and Platronics are very good at that. I currently wearing the Jabra Evolve 75, which is a great headset for communication. Make no mistake about it. Like the Sonys and the Beats and all those headsets that are made for music are no good for communication. And it is, I actually find that they have not yet made the perfect headset, but at least Jabra and Platronic as companies, they specialize in it. And one of the important rules, still you need to get a headset with a microphone that comes close to the mouth. They have not yet figured out how to make clear, solid sound without it. Right? There's a lot of technologies that are coming close. Actually the most expensive Bose, their microphone is pretty impressive. Still not there compared to a simple headset with a proper microphone that coming close to your mouth in terms of communication. And so I said the headset, make sure your internet is 2 notches a little higher. If you're having a problem with dead zones in your house, which happens to me a lot. You get the Orbi or the Google Mesh Network, um, but make sure your webcam is solid, and get good lights, because when you're not visible to people, you're exhausting their brain on Zoom a lot more than physical.
So basically, what we're saying here is employers invest in the physical equipment that your remote employee is going to use, so that the quality of their work and the quality of their participation can be good. It's to your benefit. And employees...
The quality of participation is the perfect word. The quality of teamwork, the quality of connection. So participation is the good word, Ken. This is a good one.
And employees, open your mouths and tell your employer, hey, I need some money to buy this. I'll send you back the receipts, or you can buy it and send me the equipment. But understand, that you're getting the benefit. If I'm using my old torch lamp to light my desk instead of a proper light, you're the one who's paying the cost.
You're the one who's paying the cost. And always keep in mind, if you look at your hydro bill and you look at your saving when people are not there, the computers in your office cost money, and they cost electricity, and usually remote people don't charge you for electricity, right? You will be shocked at your bill, and you're still going to be saving money, even if you're buying equipment for people.
Sharon, how about privacy? I've had people unwilling to have meetings and such online because they're afraid of privacy issues. How
It's
do
an
you
issue.
deal with that?
So depend on the size of the company that you have. If you have a big company, it is crucial to have a specialist. The security is an evolving experience. There is no specific plugin that make your security better. Mm-hmm. While I give a lot of notes on security in the book, I'm actually not the security expert in my office, but I do know that there is incredible value of hiring not too busy outsourcing company, a company that not a technical support company that they're not too busy. The key is not too busy, because they need to continuously pay attention.
Yes.
So when you go for the cheapest guys and they're overwhelmed, but they want to and everything, they might even give you a nice customer service when things don't work. But properly monitoring your security is an evolving experience. It's almost an art. It's not a perfect science. You need a perfect scientist that has the artist to him to continuously evolve your security.
Okay.
So that's one thing when you have the specific budget. Like I said, also, if you have lower budget, find the proper technical support company to take care of that. There are firewalls. There are there are tools for password protection, which are very, very important. I mean, we use 1Password, and we're also investigating Keeper at this time. Managing password and a secure password tool is crucial. We also recommend stuff like securing your laptops and everything, but that's for the benefit of the company, not as much for the benefit of people's privacy.
Right.
I don't think that also an office environment without the proper security is going to make any difference. If you have the right people to secure you, remote or local is the same thing, because the internet is fully connected to your office, and it's even scarier because everybody in the same place.
It's not like if your computers are in adjoining carols, it's still not vulnerable. I mean, you need, and I think one of the things that comes across to me as I read the book, even though I don't think it's spelled out as much, is that the expertise of management that you need when you go into the remote world comes clearer, that you need IT people, you need IT security people, and you don't necessarily need some of the other people. For example, you're going to have less need for the human department, the human services department, because human resources, thank you, I'm blanking on that. Yeah, you're going to have less need of that because you're not going to have as many interpersonal issues going on, because you kind of, it's very hard to have harassment going on, for example, in the remote world. It can happen, but for the most part, it's not. Whereas you get all of these bloody kinds of issues that go on in the office. In some ways, people who are working remotely are a lot more comfortable. They're a lot more comfortable because they have much more control over what they show of themselves. And by the way, they also are happier because they can dress more comfortably and they don't have to worry about that. I mean, right now, for all we know, all three of us are sitting around in our underwear.
Yeah.
Well, look, I personally feel that the managers have to learn how to take more of the responsibility of the HR these days. That's for sure.
And I think we have lost picture from.
Yes. But at that point,
Yeah.
while we're talking about reception, it seems like the internet on Skype, the Skype is behaving a little bit funny. But yes, but right. So I personally feel that at the end of the day, the managers should be equipped and should be taught and should be ready to get more personal and more intimate with the employees. You don't necessarily need as much as the HR people to take care of personal stuff, because the management is a little bit the new HR for many companies. They are expected to get more personal on many things, and HR are more. HR is still doing the services of reporting and making sure that everything makes sense to the company, but it is the manager that needs to be more personal.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a great place for us to end today. Folks, we've been talking with Sharon Koifman. His book, which has just come out, is called Surviving Remote Work. Please look for it on Amazon. And of course, we're going to have a link under the show here.
Yes.
So you just look at the link there. And this is a book, as I say, I read it like I do all the books that we talk about here on It Matters Radio. And I have to tell you that I thought it was very interesting, even though, other than my work with Monica, I really a lot remote, but I thought it was really worth reading. It got me thinking. And then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, I have this conversation with the wife of a friend, and lo and behold, it becomes very relevant. And I think there are going to be a lot of questions folks have. And, one of the things I want you to encourage people is, when you listen to these shows, is please write us questions, send us questions,
yes,
contact us on
love
it.
them.
Contact us, particularly on Facebook. We have a Facebook page, but you can also, on a Twitter account, contact us with questions, and maybe we will even have Sharon revisit us at a future date to answer specific questions for people. But we would love to have you participate in it, because this is a change that is coming on in our world.
Yes,
we
it
are
is.
now doing. Welcome back. We are now
Hello, Sharon.
doing remote. And by the way, this is a point. This is a point to keep in mind, folks. Even experts like Sharon can run into little glitches in but that's part of reality. And you know, one thing that's really interesting is I had somebody say to me one point, well, we can't have remote work in our business because what happens if somebody loses their electricity or their connection? And I looked at them and I said, well, let's see, you have, and I happen to know, you have 25 or so employees. Let's say one person loses their electricity or their connection at home. How many employees do you still have working?
Yes.
24. Okay, now let's say that you lose your electricity or your connection with the office. How many employees do you have working? None.
Absolutely. Common sense. Yeah.
And also there's the reality. Depends how much downtime costs you, and you can also buy battery packs that they cost $100 a person, even less, right? And you have 3 hours of uptime on any of them, and there's always solutions.
Yes.
But you're right. One office going down is a lot more painful, and it happens all the time, than individual going down. But you can always have solutions. There's always technologies out there for that.
Always, yeah.
So again, folks, look for the book. It's called Surviving Remote Work by our guest, Sharon Koifman. And Sharon, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
A pleasure.
Thank
It was
you.
really, really fun. Thank you, guys.
Bye, folks.
Bye-bye.